Okay, welcome to the December 4th, 2023 meeting of the Yarmouth Board of Health. Housekeeping here, just please note, this is a hybrid participation meeting, and in English, that means there are a lot of ways that people could participate in the meeting. Obviously, people can attend here as you look around, some have. And if you go to the website, the town gives some options of how people can participate or just watch. There's a link for the YouTube channel. There's a link for Zoom. People can also call in, and the phone numbers are on the website, and listen in that way. So let's do some attendance while we're at it. Charlie, are you present?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I am. I'm Hillard. Mary?
Present.
Present. Eric?
Present.
Okay, so we have quorum there. Why don't we start up here on the public comment here on the agenda? So, see if anyone's here or at home or wherever they are. Be interested in addressing the board, questions, answers, whatever. People, have we waited long enough?
Yes.
We have, okay, fine. We have an update here on homeless for the holidays, it says, and Yarmouth professional firefighters. We have someone here? Come on up.
Mr. Chairman,
Introduce yourself.
Lieutenant Adam Riker is here to introduce.
sorry?
Lieutenant Adam Riker is homeless for the holidays.
Thank you for letting me come and speak real quick. Just gonna, we've been running this event here.
Take your time.
Thank you. Homeless for the Holidays is an event that was started in Bourne, and Yarmouth started quite a few years ago. We started running our own donation site here at 1044 Route 28. It's the Our Lady of the Highway Church. And we're collecting food for the Yarmouth Food Pantry, new kids' clothing, so infant to 18 years old. Sometimes the teens get overlooked, but newer, slightly used or unused clothing. They try to give clothes to kids that they'll actually use and will feel comfortable wearing it. So we try to go for the new clothes if we can. And also, Toys for Tots, of course, is a real popular one. We do a lot of that. So we've been running this for quite a few years now with the firefighters all volunteer their time there from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And we'll be collecting goods again this year. So the Yarmouth Food Pantry, it's non-perishable food items. We also do cash donations, and that gets donated to the charities. So everything we collect is distributed to the 3 charities.
Okay, why don't you just run through the hours, dates, location, so
Sure.
people, in
Yep,
case
it's
they
going to be
missed it.
December 6th to the 10th, and we have it 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. is typically when it's staffed. Wednesday is the day we set up, the 6th. We set up in the morning, so give us a little time. We kind of start setting up at 8, but there will be people there. And then Sunday afternoon, Sunday about noontime, we start taking things down and get the donations all distributed.
Okay. Board members, questions, anything that would be helpful? Okay, that's Dr. Venezia is here. Okay, just, that's okay, just for the minutes, great. Anyone? No? Thanks for the good work and thanks for coming in, just so people at home can hear it and, so the turnout gets better, that's all.
Super. Yep, just trying to help people in the time of need. This time of year gets tough, and as everybody knows, the need's out there, so we appreciate all the support.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.
Thanks for doing that.
Thank you, Lieutenant.
Thank you.
Okay, Venezia, that's for you, at your leisure. Okay, we're up to number 3, and this is a hearing for 341 North Main Street in South Yarmouth. This is going to be a vote evening for this, and there should be a Ms. Bryden or someone representing that person, and that's specifically about an addition to poultry license.
I apologize. I have some laryngitis, so God, there's a microphone.
Okay, and just introduce yourself so we can record that.
Sure. My name's Renee Bryden. I live at 341 North Main Street.
So just try to speak slowly, and hopefully we can hear you.
Okay.
That's all. Okay. So, any comments
So,
from the department?
the Chairman, the regulations that you have passed in the past, you've had them from a couple meetings ago, does not allow for a rooster, right? That's been a longstanding policy here with the Yarmouth. and the petitioner is asking for a variance of that policy. So the package you see in front of you, we have a payment and we have a green card. One abutter has been notified. So it's a complete package for variance, and I would just ask that the applicant maybe can explain exactly why she's appealing to the board for a variance of the policy.
Okay.
Sure.
Fill us in.
So I always buy my chicks from a reputable place like Agway that they're sexed when you buy them. And he was misgendered, so his name is Rachel, because I thought he was a hen. We do have coyotes and riverhawks over there, and he does add a layer of protection. The one neighbor has not complained to me, as far as I know, in the time that I've had him, and the rest of the abutters is the town, Wellfields, Conservation, et cetera. Because I hand raised him, he's tame, he's not a safety hazard to people, so I would prefer not to dispatch of him if I didn't have to.
Okay, the people here, our guest here tonight?
So, Ms. Bryden, have we had any complaints about him?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay.
Could I ask the question of this? Why are we outlawing roosters in the town of Yarmouth?
I don't know the history on it. I assume,
You know, it's like, maybe we outlaw all males in the town of Yarmouth too.
Oh, what an idea.
See, I mean, you know, what's the problem with the rooster?
So on December 14th of 2017, a regulation was passed in the town that outlawed this. Actually, you
I
voted.
didn't ask you when it was passed, I asked you why.
I wasn't here in 17, but I can tell you, the permits, I understand the question. There's a town regulation that was passed by this board, and actually, Charlie, you were on the board in 2017 and voted, and that stipulation is contained within the regulation. There are no roosters allowed.
Was that, was people who had licenses prior grandfathered? I don't know if I've seen that, because
I have not, I don't think there's a grandfather provision in this.
okay.
And that was carried, I think, through from the previous, we had revised those, read them, revised them, and I think that was the way it was in the original one.
was there one original issue there why that was reviewed at the time, back in 2017? I don't recall. what
That
it-
that wasn't about the pigeons, was it? No, that's
could
not
be.
poultry.
Well, I think it does include, yeah,
Yeah, that's what it
I
was,
think it was included. Okay, I remember that case quite
yes.
well.
Mr. Chairman, in your package, and it says restrictions, it says, "No roosters shall be kept or maintained on the licensed premises unless authorized by the Board of Health."
I
So
make
that's,
a move that we authorize
Does
the
this board have the power
addition.
to take that back and change it?
Just
Yes.
one at a time.
Yeah,
Who's going?
go
Okay.
ahead, make the motion.
I make a motion that we remove that.
I make a
Allow
well,
roosters. Retract that.
Okay, that's a motion. In order to have discussion, I guess we'd have to second the motion in order to have some more discussion. Yeah, okay. So now it's time for discussion.
I would approve removing it in this case, but not in general, because I went by the house. I mean, what she said is correct. There's only one neighbor, and that neighbor hasn't complained. However, I drove through a lot of Yarmouth looking at the other person that's going to be on, and you could have a rooster in a yard, and it could be a real nuisance because there are so many houses close together. So I would like to just take it on a case-by-case if it comes up again. That would be
so,
my-
Mr. Chairman, there are two, there's a divergent here. Removing it from the regulation and approving the variance are two different
Right,
things.
right.
You're approving the variance, or you're thinking?
Discussing. I'm discussing Charlie's motion, and that's why I seconded, so we could discuss it. And I just said what my stance would be, what I would be willing to approve.
Right, just everyone keep in mind, when you second the motion, doesn't mean you're gonna vote for it, against it, just means we can have discussion. If there wasn't a second to the motion, then the motion's gone, done, and so it ends right there. So I always like when someone second the motion for discussion purposes. One thing that I think is important and that this was done in December 14th, 2017. So that's the last time we did the regulations. Dr. Venezia, has there been anything different that's changed in roosters that we need to be aware of? Genetic engineering? I mean, anything new?
I think the issue that, the reason this came up is that there can be quite a noise nuisance in certain neighborhoods, and that's why I agree that in this case, we should grant a variance. However, it should be on an individual basis. In this case, Ms. Bryden indicated there were no complaints, no neighbors' complaints, so I see no reason why we shouldn't grant a variance for this. But I think it should be on a case-by-case basis, because some roosters can be a nuisance in a neighborhood. Not a nuisance, I mean, I wouldn't consider it a nuisance, I wouldn't even hear it really, but they can be loud at sunrise, and that could offend some people. And that's why I think we probably should leave it on a case-by-case basis. But I could understand why that rule was put in there to begin with.
Okay. So we've got two, as you pointed out very astutely, that there are kind of two issues. One, we do have a motion on the table, and that would be just removing that restriction. And we'd have to vote on that, and then depending upon which way the vote would go, it would be, someone would have to make a motion about whether or not we would just case by case.
Mr. Chairman, could I just ask, how long has the rooster been there?
Truthfully,
Absolutely, truthfully.
a couple of years, and this was the first time. I mean,
Yeah.
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 Are you, can I just ask
Yeah.
a question? Are you breeding them?
No,
Okay.
no.
So the one rooster won't result in
No.
more roosters?
no. And that's why I get the sex chicks, because I don't want to, yeah.
You gotta have a hen in there somewhere.
Yeah.
She's got the
Barry, have you
hens.
been there?
Yes, so I did go out to do the inspection. I was one that did notice the rooster with Phil, the other animal inspector. Your coop is very clean, very organized, very well kept, no signs of rodent activity. You couldn't, I don't know how close the nearest house behind you is. It's probably,
Flax Pond is behind me.
yeah,
and then
probably
Thurwood.
miles. And
Yeah.
the other house is next to your left is probably 100 yards away. So when we went, we didn't hear it until we saw it. So it's not how do I say that, a squawking rooster? Is that a term? But we saw it before we heard it, which a lot of times we get calls out for roosters, you hear them before you see them, so.
Right. So,
Thank
Call
you.
for the vote?
Yeah. So, all in favor of the motion, once again, that would be totally pulling the restriction on roosters, on the regulations. This is, I believe, is that correct, Charles?
Yes, that's what he said.
So, all in favor of the motion, you can raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
So it's one, anyone against?
Nay.
Okay, so that's 4-1, so the motion does not pass. Now, we can make another motion if someone feels differently.
I move that we grant this variance because of the specific conditions that have been explained by the owner.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay. All in favor of that motion, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so that's unanimous, that passes. Okay, congratulations.
May I ask, can we limit that to just one rooster, or is it?
Well, the motion's passed.
Okay,
Now,
all right.
if we can certainly, if
I-
board members want to move on that.
I asked to approve the variance, and she only requested the variance for Rachel, this one rooster.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not hoping to have any more, so.
So it's only for Rachel, okay. Now, we want to have any kind of further discussion, and that doesn't have to be tonight, about looking at the regulations and changing, it's not going to be a total ban. If we're going to be doing it case by case, we'd have to rewrite, edit the regulations.
Since this is the only time we have had a variance requested for a rooster, I think we should just leave the the regulations as they stand and entertain individual requests as they come up. We don't get to do a lot of that because everything is pretty cut and dried, and we're dealing with fairly serious health issues. So I'm fine with having the regulations stand and being able to exercise some discretion if there's another request.
Someone comes forward
Right.
requesting a variance.
Right.
Anyone else about
I
that?
agree with that. Rooster poses no more health issue than any other poultry.
No.
Okay, so we can move on then.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Very good.
Good spot. Notice the rooster.
Okay. Next,
Thought you might propose that we change the rooster's name. Well,
I kind of like that. I think it's kind of contemporary.
it's woke.
yeah. The pronouns get complicated, get very complicated, right? First name basis, I think works.
I gave you these regulations a little while ago. It's been 17, so we're going on almost six years now. The board has probably had a chance to look at it. Was there anything in those regulations that you jumped out that had to be amended in any way?
The poultry?
The poultry regulations, I think I gave them to you two meetings ago. I didn't know if, maybe at a meeting in the future, we may want to, you now have copies again of them, of all the regulations. I don't, and Charlie, you
I think
voted
it'd
on
be
this?
reasonable to revisit those regulations, because I
Yeah.
think some of the setbacks are a little bit stringent.
Okay, yeah, those are the types of things, to modernize it and to say, okay, is it applicable today?
Yeah,
6
especially
years
with the
ago.
price of eggs for people if they,
Great point.
yeah.
Okay, good.
Um,
Appreciate your input on that specifically.
Yeah, I mean, we, just to let you know, we have regulations that are really from antiquity. I mean, that have not come up, there've been no issues, haven't been anything, and they're sitting in the back of a file somewhere. So
Would
just so
they?
you know, as they come up, it's
Right.
good time to look at it again.
Okay. So maybe at a future meeting, we can put this on as to, it'd be reviewed, and we just go through line by line. Does this make sense? Like we did with tobacco control, like we did with tattooing and body art,
Right.
to go through to see if, in fact, if there's an opportunity, are these applicable today that they were 6 years ago?
Yeah, I think in this day and age, if it's done correctly, it's a really good family project. So from that perspective, I'd like to revisit it, as far as keeping a few chickens.
Yeah. Well,
That's good.
maybe in the barn, now that we have, Doc, we have you on this, maybe the barn regulations as well at the same time.
Oh, no, let's leave them for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, don't you agree? I mean,
I don't know the
do a
date of
lot with that.
when the barn,
Yeah, that would be big.
Yeah, we don't want
I
to,
think the barn regulations were pretty reasonable.
were they? Okay.
I thought so.
I didn't know how late,
Poultry is
how
a-
long they
I
were.
think they're almost identical, as I recall, as I
Right.
read through them.
right.
And I
there's-
think there's really quite a difference between keeping half a dozen chickens or 10 chickens and keeping a couple of horses in your backyard.
absolutely.
Or a cow, or a pig, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, it's quite a difference.
Yeah,
Barry, how many were there? How many chickens were there?
10, right?
Yeah.
5,
And she can have up
Five
to,
replaced.
she didn't even have her maximum amount. So she's under her limit. So, again, like I said, it was very clean, very well kept. The food and feed was separate in metal trash cans, so I was very surprised, so.
Yeah, I think to keep this from going underground, I think it'd be better if we did address those issues.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll put that on for,
Perhaps the laryngitis gets spread to the rooster, and there won't be any issue at all. Right?
Right. Good point.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, we have a hearing, this is 7 Loon Lane in West Yarmouth, that's going to require a vote. This has to do with the septic system repair variance. And there's really dealing with only one reduction in setback. Do we have someone here to
They're
present
not.
this?
And what time were they told to be here? Okay, so we may want to just take that out of order, perhaps. I expect
Put that on hold, hopefully someone shows to that.
engineering, we had a chance to take a look at it. Dan Ogil is pretty good about, he's
Yeah.
very
He'll be
conscientious.
here.
He'll be here, I
Good
imagine he
track
will.
record, great track record.
Yep, yep.
Okay, so, number 5 is an update on migrant family relocation. Who's on that?
Sure, I'll just give you, not much change. Between Barry and I, we visit the Harbor Suites, as you know, that's where the migrant families are. And there's 115 individuals. The 4 National Guard are there. There's a nighttime manager. Barry goes over every couple days. We're there monitoring. Maybe you want to talk a little bit, but there really hasn't been a change. We do think perhaps we may see, as the state has indicated, there may be some consolidation of the program. And I know some communities, in Plymouth or otherwise, have said they're going to relocate them to congregate, where it's more supervised and not the scattered siting, so make it bigger sites, but maybe more appropriately located with wraparound services and things of that nature. I'm not saying that is going to happen here, but we may see that. It's certainly not going to, we don't envision it to increase. One thing I do want to say, so there really hasn't been a lot of change, but it's important that the listeners and the board understands there are no communicable diseases at the Harbor Suites, okay? There aren't any associated with this population here. And that's important. It is being monitored. The VNA of Cape Cod, they monitor our MAVEN system. There are no active cases of tuberculosis there. That's important that you understand that.
I just have 2 things. I did go over, National Guard were great. I sat with them a long time.
you? Okay.
And, yeah, they filled me in. They're excited about what they're doing, and it felt good. The owner's daughter was there, took me around as well. She was lovely. As to the issue of TB, I would be curious to know how that diagnosis of latent tuberculosis was made. Just for the public, that means that generally what that means is someone has been exposed to the bacteria, but they're not actively infected for themselves or for other people. But somehow it was determined that they had 4 people there who had latent tuberculosis, and that apparently, which means someone is not actively infected. So they wouldn't have any symptoms. Now, with tuberculosis, this day and age, you don't do just routine chest films on people. At one time in medicine, you did, but there's radiation involved. If someone doesn't have symptoms, I'm sure x-rays, hopefully, were not performed. There could have been some testing there. There are ways of testing for tuberculosis. There's a blood test now, actually, for it, but before that, it was a skin test that probably many of you have had. One thought I had is people, were any of the 4 individuals from another country? Because that could be relevant in this case. Many countries use a vaccine that we don't in this country. BCG vaccine is what the name of it is. And what can happen is, it's used worldwide. That if someone has that skin test where they put the needle and they make the little bump and so on, that could become positive even though the person has never been exposed to tuberculosis. So because of the vaccine, the person could be testing positive, either because they have the vaccine and or actually have latent or tuberculosis. And one thing that people could think of tuberculosis, of latent tuberculosis, is like those of people who have had chickenpox, I guess, where the virus stays dormant in anyone who has, just quiet, and it can kind of come back. That's when someone will get zoster. It's sort of a reappearance of the virus. What's that?
Shingles.
Shingles.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. And so it's the same thing with tuberculosis. So I'd be curious to know if you can find out how the testing was done. That's just, I think the board ought to know that. How was it determined someone decided these people have latent tuberculosis?
Sure. So I do have some information. I don't know exactly the test, but it was with a healthcare facility that is not familiar with communicable disease. It was for substance abuse. It was at the Duffy Health Center. And a doctor had called, that not familiar, that don't work with communicable disease on a regular basis. It was more about substance abuse. And they were working up individuals through their system. And out of an abundance of caution and concern,
Right.
although latent TB is far different, as you just explained, far different than active, and that was actually the call. What was the test? She didn't say. The state has actually been called in and confirmed, in fact, because we've had some media inquiries on this.
Sure.
Is the community at risk, right? Is the community, and they're just not. There's no treatment, there's no symptoms, and the community is not at risk.
So did they do a skin test? Is that how they
My
decided that?
guess they did a skin test.
That's something I'd appreciate if you could find out. I'm sure it'll be pretty easy by calling Duffy. However, people with latent tuberculosis, a lot of people will be treated for it. There's a regimen or
Yep.
choices of regimens where people who have latent tuberculosis perhaps should be treated, and that certainly needs to be determined by a health provider to make a decision whether that person, if they indeed have latent tuberculosis, should they be treated for it. That just because you're treating someone doesn't mean they could possibly infect somebody else. It's protecting that person who would have been exposed at some point to tuberculosis. This may not be relevant in that these people may not have latent tuberculosis. They just may have a positive test because of the vaccine that I described.
Right.
That'd be
Maybe
interesting to know
if I'm-
because, right, I mean, if they have latent tuberculosis, then, many people choose to be treated because later on they could become immunosuppressed, and at that point, the tubercle bacillus could come out and cause active infection.
More likely to treat someone if, yes, they're immunocompromised, they had an organ transplant, or perhaps they have what's called type 1 diabetes, or they're immunocompromised, they may be taking medication for arthritis, or whatever it is, those people are more likely to get treated. So that would be important to find that out. It may be a nice thing to do for the people who tested positive, get more information for them.
I can do that, but I would like, if anyone listening to this on a rebroadcast or even tonight here, that latent TB is not in fact a communicable disease. That's very clear, right?
Right.
Right.
So that didn't show, it's not active infection.
Right.
So that there's no ambiguity here that in fact it's not a communicable disease and that in fact the community is not at risk.
Right.
Okay. But I understand that the board should get more information, how that test came about. And I actually have looped in the state and the VNA.
And if they had had the BCG previously,
Say that again.
if they had
If they-
received BCG previously,
Right, we owe it to the people we're testing,
Right.
For sure.
right?
That is one of the concerns as this population, as this program was being introduced, was, the concern was, will there be communicable diseases? And in the MAVEN system.
And there hasn't been.
there-
It's
there-
great.
There has not, exactly, there hasn't been. So that risk, there are others, it's an emotional issue, it's financial, it's turned into political, turned into a national political issue. The southern border and beyond, we've seen protests at our town hall. But the health risks, it's not there, but more information for yourself, for the board, to understand.
For the
how that is.
personal.
Sure, yeah, and for the person, yeah.
Yeah.
Tested, I can certainly get that.
I mean, you can think about people who have been in the military, or people who in this country who are working on the front lines in health, have had high risk of exposure to other people who maybe have tuberculosis or whatever. and may have latent tuberculosis. Once again, that's just from an educational standpoint of view, that there are people living here full-time who may have latent tuberculosis. These people might or may not, but still, people aren't at risk, you know, if someone is walking around with latent tuberculosis, there's no risk for that.
These people walking around with a tuberculosis? That's what I'm listening to him. He's concerned because these people have got tuberculosis.
No.
they don't.
No, they don't.
No.
They do not have active infection.
So
They have been exposed to the germ, it gets into their lungs wall it off, and nothing happens, except they might have a positive skin test. Okay. Years later, or months later, weeks, if they are immunocompromised, you know, their immune system is,
see a problem. Why is it,
it's not a problem. That's what we're saying.
why is it such a big discussion?
Because we're concerned about the individuals, those 4 individuals who may need treatment, so that later on it doesn't bust out and become active. It's nothing to do with the community, because they don't have active TB, but the standard of healthcare in this country is to treat people with latent tuberculosis, so that later on in life, it doesn't get out and cause them to be sick.
Or they don't have any exposure to tuberculosis, but their test is positive because they've actually been vaccinated.
Right. And
For it. So there is really no risk here. I mean, this is just a service we're providing for the public here to reassure people that people are not walking around, or these people with an infection, with an active infection. There's no risk.
Right.
I do have to say that the terminology creates fear in the community immediately.
It's misunderstood.
No question.
Widely.
Thank you. And just the explanation in this discussion, it is helpful, Charlie, because I do get the calls here, and even the media has called. What the board has just discussed to dispel that for calm and concern, and not to any way disguise it or minimize it, but there is no risk, and that's important. So I appreciate that you had a discussion here on this,
Okay?
and I'll get you more information.
Charlie, does that help you with understanding?
What I've been listening to for the last 15 to 20 minutes is about this big concern about tuberculosis and tests being negative or positive or everything else. And if somebody's listening to this on the TV, this is scaring the shit out of them.
Well,
Right? And you tell me there's no big thing to worry about, yet we're creating something to get all these people worried about.
I hope they're hearing Jay say, because he's repeated it several times, there is no risk to the community. There is no risk to anybody
I understand
else.
what that means in the English
Right.
language, but the way we've been discussing it and listening to it the last 15 or 20 minutes, somebody is listening to that outside is all of a sudden concerned.
Don't be concerned. There is no risk. We are speaking as professionals with a concern for the people that were tested.
Does anyone here on the board want to explain it again in more simpler terms?
I think you gave a really good explanation of the latent TB, and I think we're pretty much on board with that.
Okay.
I think it allows us, if we are confronted by the public, we're able to answer their questions and allay their fears.
Larry, that's exactly, you are trusted voices in the community, so you may be, that's exactly why I wanted you to have this discussion, is because you're able to then explain exactly, with good information, people make good decisions, exactly, with credibly, what is going on, because people get scared. It's a difficult term, and people don't understand it, as Mary said, it creates a lot of fear, unnecessarily. I'll get you more information on that, and I can share I'll share some emails from the state DPH that reiterated exactly what the board has just said.
Okay. Anyone here yet for,
Before you go off that, can I just ask a little bit?
Anything, yeah.
The National Guard, weren't they, aren't they an incredibly valuable crew there? That the 4 of them maybe that were there? How many, I don't know how many were there?
yeah, I mean, 3 at the time. Yes, there were 3 when I walked in their office. They were not sure they could maintain that nice office they had, whether they're going to have to go
Yeah.
into a smaller office. but very excited about providing the service they're doing, and it's not been difficult, and it's been a very nice assignment, they kept saying, for them.
I think the culture, I think they speak the language. I think some, two of them actually, I think they speak French Creole, and they're passionate about that assignment, and incredible. It really is, it's important. This isn't just another assignment. They're really looking out for these individuals, because these are Yarmouth residents. And they take it serious, and they do a great job over there anytime. They're incredibly attentive. If they don't know the answer, they get it to us. The communication is seamless, and they're right. I pull up, or Barry pulls up, they're right out, they come right out, and they want to address it. So the community needs to understand that it's being well monitored, and individuals, their needs are being well taken care of.
Nice.
They were very methodical going through things with me, of what they're providing and so on. I mean, a lot of details, which was great.
It's an incredibly vulnerable population, and I will tell you, just to follow up with that, I had a call today from a church organization who wanted to have the count of how many individuals wanted to have Christmas dinner delivered at the. So I can tell you, a credit to the Yarmouth community who's reached out. I don't know if you saw, Hillard, if you saw the hotel, the lobby of the motel, but it's been transformed into, not a gift shop, but kind of a thrift area where people need different personal care items and things of that nature. Things are being dropped off on a regular basis. It just shows the outpouring of philanthropy in the community. It really is something. And I took a call today. Barry's going to find out how many individuals, families, would like to have Christmas dinner delivered, and that's being done by a church group here in town.
Nice.
Yeah, it says a lot about the community. I know you've heard a lot of other things, but that certainly is going on. It's under the radar, but it's going on. It's nice.
Anyone here for the hearing for the septic system? We're still not.
Erica, could I ask, did you hear anything from them saying they wouldn't be here?
It's probably the first time we've encountered that with them. Okay.
Coronavirus?
Let's see what happens. Let's go up to number 6 here, the update on coronavirus. Any news?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So you have the sheet in front of you. For the month of November, Yarmouth had a 8.17% positivity rate with 37 positive cases. The county was at 7.09% positivity rate, and the state was at 7.10. So the town was just a tad bit higher than those. The last 2 weeks of November, you can see Yarmouth was 12.39% positivity rate with 23 positive cases. The county is 7.3, and the state was at 7.68 positivity rate. Then just the last week of November, Yarmouth was at 10.47% positivity rate with only 11 positive cases. The county, 8.56, and the state was at 8.30. So the town of Yarmouth is with the positivity rates is just a tad bit higher than the state and county average.
So should we tell the people in Yarmouth to stop trying to beat the county and the state?
We don't want to be number one. We had 1,800 tests that we did give out quickly throughout the town, throughout the senior centers, school districts and stuff like that. So we were on top of that. We still have face shields. If anybody would like face shields, we'd be more than happy to drop them off, whether it's daycares, medical facilities, dental facilities, anything. We do have plenty of face shields left to give out too, so.
Just after the holidays, I would have envisioned to see perhaps a spike in that, only because families came together, right? There were indoor gatherings, so that we may actually see an upward adjustment in that.
Yep.
Right, that's
Right,
the pathology of that.
yep.
The last 6 years, 5 years, whatever, there's always been a spike at this time of year, so then it'll taper
Right.
down.
There's all kinds of get-togethers for the holidays, so.
Right.
Yep.
No, so that would not be unforeseen.
Just so the public to be aware, there's also the spike in RSV that we're seeing. And it's another serious infection. There's a vaccine for it that I would encourage people to speak with their health provider whether or not should be getting that vaccine. It's a vaccine that has nothing to do with the COVID vaccine, totally different, but a serious infection.
Also separate from the flu shot.
Yeah?
So.
Okay. We're up to new and old business.
Under new business, you have been given the single-use water ban that's going to go into effect January 1st. And we're doing some public service announcements on that, and I'd just like to roll something that we have going out on social media, if you could. If we,
Not good to mute your boss.
you know, I have to tell you, if it stays muted the whole time, I'd be fine with that.
Let it be. We don't need to hear it. No, anyway, right? So it's only you.
No.
Live, Jay?
Here we go.
Message is to make the community aware of a sales restriction that is coming into effect December 31st of this calendar year. Back in April, at the annual town meeting, a ban by citizens petition was put into place and approved by the town that bans the restriction of single-use water bottles in the town of Yarmouth. Non-carbonated, non-flavored water bottles will no longer be available for sale. This will certainly impact our residents, our employers, employees, and visitors to the town of Yarmouth. We want to make you aware that on December 31st, these will no longer be available for sale. Now, it isn't just the single use, but also six-packs, cases, however you purchase water bottles, you will no longer be able to do that in the town of Yarmouth. It's important that you have some time at December 31st that you can adjust. This is for retailers and for the community to adjust their purchasing habits. If you have any questions about this citizens petition, will be available for viewing on the town website, on the health department's web page, and also, please, if you have any questions, call the health office at the phone number that's listed below. I apologize.
Okay.
Okay.
And it's actually not just a petition, it's now a general bylaw.
It is a bylaw, but it's important, Mary, that the community understands, because there's been some
That the
pushback.
citizens asked for
The
it.
citizens, this is not the government, the Board of Health, the selectmen that asked for this, so I make that distinction.
Protecting us.
Yeah, exactly. This is not something, and you probably read, this is on social media now, Instagram. My kids let me know over the weekend that I'm on Instagram, and I don't even know what that is. I know what it is, but, okay. But that's, what we want to do, all the retailers have been told with their application, they've been told this so that they can, again, deplete their inventory and be ready, and we're not going out January 2nd.
Right.
But we want, there is a shift. This has been voted by citizens petition. At town meeting, a vote was taken, and this is enacted. You have that. You may get questions on this. Why did the Board of Health do this? Why did the selectmen do this? You did not, but it was voted at the town. So, non-carbonated, non-flavored, single, less than a gallon, and that'll take effect on December 31st.
Right.
Okay, you had a presentation here from
Yes,
the, you're very familiar with it?
Excellent.
And again,
Great.
and we're just trying to get out ahead of this. Some communities have done nothing. They just let it take effect, and the beverage aisle, it didn't have, the plastic was gone, the water bottles were gone. We want to make sure, proactively letting people know that in fact, that's what's coming. So that's what this was about, and I've worked with the town administrator to say, I think it's important that we let the community know, and they can then adjust.
I saw that headline on the website.
Did you? Oh,
Great.
Good. Well, thank you. I appreciate that, just so. And more important, well, as importantly, the retailers know. I had a call from Shaw's. They wanted to know if alkaline water, pH balanced water. Well, that fits in that actually fits in here as well. That's not an energy drink of any kind. It is, that fits in this bylaw. Now, some communities, as you probably well know, some of our abutting communities passed this, and they have since rescinded it for whatever. I'm not saying, I'm not saying that that's what Yarmouth is going to do, but this is working its way across the Cape. I don't know, but in effect, on December 31st in Yarmouth, and retailers will be held to that, and we'll certainly work with them. This is not to be punitive, although there is, as you can see, there is a punitive component, an enforcement component. In no way do we want to be punitive. We want to educate and work with them, and that's what we'll do, okay? The retailers have all been told. All right?
And we've talked about RSV, COVID, and the flu, and how you've gone viral, okay? Congratulations, all right?
It's embarrassing enough. When my daughter's saying, "You're an influencer," I'm like, "Yeah, okay." Did any more on the plastic water bottle? If any questions, you understand, you commit them to the red site. But it's really important they understand citizens petition, okay? Wherever you fall on that is done by citizens. The other list you have in front of you, and I know you pay attention to this because you've put a limit on the number of tobacco permits the town has at 29. And so there are still 8, 9 permit holders in tobacco that have not put in their application yet. So our inspector is going to go, Phil will go back out over this next 2 weeks to to have that direct contact, communication, because in fact, there's a little bit of leeway, but they could lose their license if they don't. The others, we certainly do that on the retail and the food permits and things of that nature, but these have a ceiling. There's a cap on this. And if they're not attentive to that, and I know some time ago, last year, probably this early part of this year, when someone hadn't put them in, you had to call them in, and we certainly want to avoid that for themselves and for this board to have to make that tough decision. Vast majority, but there's 8 to 10 that have not put that in, and we're gonna make sure that we have close contact with them, of communication with them directly, so that they understand.
So he's going personally.
He's personally gonna go out. Yep.
And that's not new. It's been their responsibility every year. There's nothing new about that.
It is, and if you see the names on here, they're more familiar to you than they are to me.
Yes.
It's the same, and it just happens in it's just the same folks. You've had them in front of the board for other reasons, but we're going to try to avoid that difficult conversation and there's certainly disruption to their business. And there's a financial consideration here.
Significant one.
Yeah. Okay. And
More new old business?
the other piece is just that get someone here. Do you want to take someone?
I got him on the phone. He said he's gonna log in online.
Okay.
Oh, this is for the variance.
Yes.
And the other piece of going back, just to finish up on that, all the applications are out, please know that. Rentals are already coming in for '24. Rentals are already coming in, and they're actually, we've started to schedule, and some are being actually issued, which is terrific. We're well in advance of what we had been in the past. Food service permits, motels, pools, all the permits that this board approves of, and actually oversees and has regulations for, those are out the door, and they have another month before they expire. So we're having strong communication. Really, the staff, Erica and Christine Slack, has done a tremendous job in that. That front office, really, to their credit.
I have a question. The woman that came before us that asked about having the basement, finished basement approved for a second bedroom. Or a
Third bedroom.
She has to have an application in, right?
So there's been an update. That's one of our updates, and I'm going to let Barry tell that story.
So she reached out to me. Actually, I reached out to her to see where the process was with the building, getting building permits and everything like that. She said that she needs the in-house care.
Right.
And with what needs to be done to the house, she can't get it done, so she is planning on selling the home.
Oh.
And going to move to Maine, to a bigger piece of property that she can have in care.
Oh.
Which is fine for her, but that still lies on the house, is still,
Right.
The septic system is still undersized for the house. So whoever purchases it has to know that they need to remove a wall or remove something. They can't upgrade their septic system because they are in a zone 2. So they're going to need the most, I can't say what the most ideal thing would be, but I would suggest the wall in the basement of the illegal apartment, open that up. That'd be probably the best thing. But no, she is working with a realtor. to put it on the market. So she's moving on, but the house is still going to be in front of us,
Right.
so.
Okay, thank you.
The board granted the variance, and
Right.
Sharon DeGenario was her name, she said 6 weeks should have it done, and obviously, things have gone differently for her,
Right.
and she's now decided to sell.
Thanks for bringing that up. Okay, so we're gonna back up to number 4. This is a hearing for 7 Loon Lane, West Yarmouth. We get a vote tonight, and this is for septic system repair variance. And there's really one variance that looks like, and it's for a reduction in one setback. So hopefully everyone got over there, took a look at the property. And apparently we have someone who's going to present it tonight. How are you? Just
Very, very well. I don't know, let me see. You can hear me okay, I assume?
yeah, it's a little better volume-wise. That would be helpful. And
All right, I'll try and project.
That's better.
I don't
Just-
seem to have the ability to do a camera here. I'm on a Zoom Lite, I guess, tonight. But hey, I sure appreciate you guys' indulgence on this. I was, my secretary was out sick today, and I'm lost without her, so. But in any event, this is George Vazolis at 7 Loon Lane in West Yarmouth. My name is Dan Ojala. I'm a civil engineer and land surveyor, and helping George out with this variance. So this is not new construction. It's an existing 3-bedroom home, and the septic is in need of repair. We take a look at the groundwater. It's adjacent to tidal water body, so you get very little adjustment, but nonetheless, we did give it a 2-foot adjustment to be cautious and careful with it. You can see that we're putting this system in the highest corner of the lot that we can. What you really want to do in these situations, in my opinion, and as outlined by DeFeo and Waite when they reviewed Title V 20 years ago, you try and get that maximum separation to groundwater to protect the pathogens from going down and hitting the groundwater. And that can be at the expense of some horizontal distance, as in this case. If we put it on the northwest corner, it would be slightly further away, but it would have to be closer. Plus, you'd need a major vault, which would completely wreck the water line, the gas line, and the driveway. So by keeping it up here and high and dry and using a low-profile system, we're able to get a full 5 foot to that very conservative groundwater adjustment. Usually we use around 2.5 or 2 near a tidal water body, but here it's going to be a little extra high, and so we're going to have a good amount of separation for almost all of the year vertically to the groundwater. There's a horizontal barrier, a liner on the adjacent to salt marsh, and what that does is if there is some surcharging in the system and it starts to build up, rather than run sideways, it directs it straight down so that there's no chance of a breakout, and it would run down where it could run down the slope and into the salt marsh, and potentially carry some pathogens into Seine Pond, Swan Pond. So I think you can, under maximum feasible compliance, grant the spirit of maximum feasible compliance, grant the regulation. Title V does allow this without variance, but your regulation would call for reducing from 100 down to 51. But again, the spirit and intent we feel is met because you've got that full 5 and many times, as you can see, 7 or 8 feet of separation down to the true groundwater table for most of the year. So we feel the environment will be well protected. And in this particular case, due to the very tight site circumstances and the fact that it would wreck the driveway and would very likely have to be closer to the water table to move it, that this variance could be granted and protect the health and environment to the maximum extent feasible. So that would be the presentation. I would be glad to answer any questions if you have them.
board members, okay? Hopefully
There was
there.
barely any, salt marsh visible there. But I understand that there certainly is some along there. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, and all it looks a little thin this time of year.
What's wrong with the system right now? What has failed?
So the tank is secure. We will have the installer check that, but the leaching field is, my understanding, is in failure on this one. So we can save the component, which is a tank, but the leaching field is exhibiting signs of failure and needs to be replaced.
Do we have any idea when the tank was installed?
I would not know for sure, but it's very likely under the 78 code where it's 1,000 gallon. As long as it's a proper mix, and you can usually tell pretty easily by just looking at the tank and make sure it's not flaking, that does have a good longevity. But so it almost certainly would be a 78 code system put in the late 70s, early 80s. But there is a note on the plan that the installer will absolutely pop those covers and inspect. And if we'll also put a gas baffle on the outlet. And so while they're in there, they'll look at it. If there's any question, we'll go out and they'll go out and we'll go ahead and pull that tank out and replace it if it needs it. But it does save the homeowner a good amount of money if the tank is good, structurally sound. And, if it's a good mix on concrete, there's no problem with it continuing.
And what's the life expectancy of the liner?
So the liner is basically, vinyl is final. That won't erode in our lifetimes easily. It's a 30 mil. You could line a landfill with this stuff. It's a very heavy plastic. Sort of heavier than the sled. You roll up sled you go down a hill on. So it's an extremely stable compound. I would guess it would be hundreds of years before you'd have any breach of that.
So that means we won't see that then?
No, not even close.
Yes, the water will be up.
Right. Yeah. Board members, any questions on the property there? Or what?
I move we approve the variance for reduction in setback from 100 feet to 51 feet at 7 Loon Lane.
Second to that motion? Great, very good. Any discussion on it?
When is the work going to be done?
Thank you.
I think it would be prudent to do it sooner rather than later. So whatever your standard length is, a few months is, I'm sure, probably enough. If not, we can come back and ask for an extension.
Do you want a specific
Say
date?
by March 1st?
You put maybe addendum to the motion then?
Sure.
Go ahead, go for it.
Do I have to restate the whole thing?
No.
No, just, come on.
So we could say that it would be complete by March 1st, 2024. Is that reasonable, Dan?
Very reasonable. Yeah, I appreciate the indulgence on that. That'll be great.
Okay.
Mary, you still seconding this motion?
Yes.
Thank you. That's very good. Any discussion, further discussion? Okay, none there. All in favor of the motion, just raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, okay. That's it. Thanks for coming
I
in.
really appreciate it,
Great.
and thanks for the wake-up call. Take care now.
Okay, take care.
One question, I'm sorry. Charles, who was the second for the motion?
Oh, was it you? I'm sorry. Who seconded the motion? I know you,
Charles.
I didn't.
I think she seconded that
that's
one.
what I thought, unless you did it the first time, I don't know.
Okay.
Oh, Mary, okay.
All right, Mary, okay.
Mary?
That's what I thought. Okay. That won't go viral, relax. Okay, Mary? Okay. Any other new or old business? So the other, only new business then would be, our next meeting for a date. Move on to number 8 there.
So January 1st is the first Monday, so that would be what, the 8th then?
Yeah,
Holiday, yeah.
yeah. I'm fine with skipping,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
second meeting.
Yeah, I'm sorry that I jumped right over that, the Christmas week.
Right,
We're
so
not-
unless something.
I just assumed that.
Unless something comes up that's urgent, I'm fine with skipping that
The
and
18th.
just move ahead to January 8th. People okay with that?
Yes.
All right, so that's January 8th, that's great. Number 8 would be the next up on the agenda. Please, someone make a motion on that?
Make a motion to get out of Dodge.
Second,
Second.
anyone? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.